Welcome to the Sim Racing Paddock. I'm William Marsh, and here's my review of the Heusinkveld Engineering Sim Pedals Pro. Now, I've been an advocate of a higher-end racing pedal set, even more though than a high-end wheel. While the principles of a sim racing wheel usually remain the same as you climb up the ladder, a high-end set of pedals will result in a more authentic system similar to a real-life race car. Once you move up to a load cell or hydraulic pressure-based system, it is a significant improvement over potentiometer-based pedals and is very similar to a real-life system. I recently got in contact with Heusinkveld Engineering and they offered to send me a set of Sim Pedals Pro to review, which I gladly accepted. After a couple months of driving, I wanted to share my thoughts on this premier set of sim racing hardware. The Heusinkveld Engineering Sim Pedals Pro starts at $650 in the US for a 2-pedal set, or about $790 US for a 3-pedal set, and they are definitely a step above the mid-range consumer offerings from Fanatec or Thrustmaster. The pedals are constructed from CNC machined stainless steel and have some serious weight to it. With the combined pedal plate that I also received, it was around 20 pounds. One unique element of these pedals, as well as the Heusinkveld Engineering Ultimate pedals, is that all 3 pedals use load cells to measure the input. While other mid to high-end pedal sets use the load cell only for the brake, and then a potentiometer or a Hall effect sensor for the gas and clutch, Heusinkveld decided to go with load cells for all 3, which actually feels pretty good. The gas and clutch pedals use a load cell that is rated for approximately 14 kilograms or 31 pounds. The brake, on the other hand, uses a load cell rated for 55 kilograms or around 120 pounds. Heusinkveld claims that this pedal requires 15 times the amount of force of competing pedals, which I could say is a pretty true statement. However, I want to clarify something that might confuse some people. If you look at the consumer-grade alternative, the Fanatec Club Sport Pedal V3, you will see Fanatec uses a load cell rated for 90 kilograms, which is approximately 200 pounds. However, with that consumer-grade hardware, you're never going to use the full 9 kilograms with the pedal set. In my experience, I used about 30% of the brake's load cell, which would equal around 28.5 kilograms or around 62 pounds. That is about half the force of the brake compared to the Heusinkveld set, which I actually used the full 120 pounds. That extra 60 pounds can make a big difference, and then compared to other consumer pedals such as the potentiometer-based Logitech or Thrustmaster pedals, I can definitely believe that 15 times the force figure. In my first look video, I had many people comment saying they felt the decision to utilize a load cell in the gas and brake was a poor choice. However, I'm inclined to disagree with that. While it is true that a load cell measures force in the form of pressure, the more important factor is the way the force is applied at the load cell. A load cell is capable of generating a linear force curve just as it is capable of a non-linear curve as well. If you have a single spring like how the gas works in the HE Pro pedals, then the force applied on the load cell will be linear. However, if you have different methods such as how the brake works in the pedals with bushings, springs, etc., then that will result in a non-linear force curve which is similar to a real-life car. Theoretically, with the calibration utility, which I will talk about later in the video, you can set it so the gas could utilize a non-linear curve, but that is not similar to how it is in real life, so you are only going to be using a fraction of the load cell in the gas and clutch, and for the brake you're going to use that 120 kilogram to the fullest with a non-linear force curve. With that out of the way, now I want to talk about the pedals and how they work. When I first pulled out the pedals, I was surprised at how compact everything was. You could truly see the effort that was put into the pedals. You didn't really see any excess in the pedals. They were made to function well, but they definitely still look beautiful. However, I will have to mention some things I had issues with, and the first was the way you mount them. A great thing with these pedals are that they are fully modular where you can mount them. However, they are intended to be mounted on an 80-20-like setup. In addition, the pedals cables are pretty short, so you don't have too much leeway with how you can mount the pedals unless you get longer cables to mount to the center circuit board. I recently moved to the GT Omega Pro cockpit, which unfortunately doesn't have the compatibility with these pedals in a standalone configuration. Also, the GT Omega Pro has a fixed pedal plate, which also conflicts with the pedal's upright angle. Fortunately, Heusinkveld Engineering also sells a base plate which allows you to compensate for the pedal plate's angle. It also utilizes Logitech's pedal mounting holes, so I was able to use the Heusinkveld Engineering Sim Pedals Pro with the GT Omega Pro cockpit. However, the clearance between these pedals and the center poles is minimal, and definitely less than ideal if you're looking into these pedals. I wear a US men's size 9 shoe, and I actually found myself bumping into the wheel mounts poles, so if you have larger shoes, you might need to take that into consideration as well. I highly encourage looking into an 80-20 base cockpit or something higher end if you want to get the most out of these pedals. In addition, there is admittedly some flex in the GT Omega Pro cockpit, so as I was configuring it, it was definitely less than ideal when it came to pedal flex as well. With that aside, when I got to testing these pedals, I was simply blown away. It felt so smooth, so fluid, and extremely precise. In all my years of sim racing, this was a product I adapted to the easiest, largely because I would feel that this was really similar to a real car. I was able to just hop in and get acclimated with these pedals extremely well because it felt very similar to a real life car. After a few laps, I did come up with a few minor gripes, with the most glaring one being a very short gas pedal throw. However, a couple minutes with a wrench, and I brought the pedal throw to something further and more to my liking. And that's one of the great things with these pedals. You're able to tweak and fine-tune them to fit what you need. If you don't like the clutch, adjust the strength, digression point, or throw. If you want a weaker brake, simply put in a softer bushing. You can set these pedals to what you want. Another thing I wanted to touch on was configuring the pedals. With these pedals, there is no automatic configuration utility, so you will need to configure these manually using DI-View. The exception to this rule is iRacing, which uses its own software-based calibration utility. I will provide a link in the description to a calibration guide provided by Heusinkveld Engineering, so if you're looking to get these pedals, you can get an idea of what is needed to calibrate these pedals. After some tweaking, I was already starting to draft up my eulogy to other pedal sets. These aren't perfect, but man, are they close. Now, let's get to my pros and cons. My first pro is that these pedals are incredibly adjustable. You're able to tweak almost anything to what you would like. You can move the pedals forward, backwards, in and out, up and down, and even adjust the force required to push the pedals so you can truly cater it to what you want. My second pro is that they are very smooth. These pedals glide when you are rolling in on the throttle, and it's sort of understated, but it really does help in your throttle modulation, your brake feeling, and everything that you need to do as a driver. My next pro is that these pedals are compact, but very well thought out. You can truly see the designing and the engineering behind these pedals, and you really gain an appreciation to what they put into this set. My next pro is the load cells feel good on all three pedals. You don't really have a feeling like the traditional load cell on the gas and the clutch. It feels very linear. It feels like you are actually driving, and that is what you're looking for. On the brake, it really does have that set of polish. It really does feel fluid and also what you would expect like in a real car. This pedal set so far was what I was able to get the most modulation out of on braking. I was able to hit the threshold braking that much better in this pedal set compared to others. My next pro goes hand in hand where it is very similar to real life. I haven't really driven much in the way of actual sports or race cars, it actually felt very similar to a go-kart that I was driving before, where you had that very stiff brake, and that is very similar to how it is in a real-life race car, so I will attest to the fact that these pedals feel very close to real life. And now let's get to my cons. And some of these are nitpicky, some of them are based off of my setup, so some of these will not be as applicable to you or someone with a different cockpit. My first con is these are pretty tall pedals and upright only. As I mentioned before, I had a marginal clearance between the tops of the pedals and the wheel mounting bars on my cockpit. So that is something that you might need to take into consideration if you have a consumer cockpit similar to what I'm using. My next con is it needs a pedal plate to work with consumer grade cockpits. In the standalone configuration, these are designed to work with an 80-20 based cockpit. The mounting holes just simply aren't there on consumer grade cockpits. However, with the pedal plate that is available, you are able to mount it using Logitech pedal holes. The pedal plate is a bit of an extra charge, but I would recommend it if you have that, and also if you need to compensate for an angled pedal plate. My next con is that these aren't exactly what you would call plug and play. You will need to go into DI view and manually calibrate these to make them properly work. Now, it isn't a game breaker, it's not extremely difficult, but for someone that isn't too well versed in technology and things like that, that might be slightly daunting at first. My next con is it may be a little loud for some environments. Depending on who you're living with and whatnot, these are actually a loud set of pedals. It is all mechanical, it is all metal, so you're gonna hear those clunks, you're gonna hear those thuds. And I'll just have a little bit of the sound go now so you can get an idea. So if you're living with family or living with roommates or people who are sensitive to those kinds of sounds, you might want to take that into consideration as well. And now for the bottom line score. These I am going to give a 9.2 out of 10. These really are a great set of pedals and one of the best I've ever tested. It instilled a huge sense of confidence in me as a driver, and even with its minor hiccups, which ultimately came down to my setup, I really felt comfortable with these pedals. If you're looking for a great set of pedals under $1,000, these are my new recommended set. However, we do have contender in the near future, as I am likely going to be reviewing a set of Proto Simtech PT1 pedals in the near future. But until then, these are my new recommended pedal sets in the high-end market. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think of these Heusinkveld Engineering Sim Pedals Pro? Let us know in the comments. Also, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button and help keep us on track. Also, check out our website and forum and join the SRP community. For the Sim Racing Paddock, I'm William Marsh, and you have a great rest of your day.